So now we define what is the covalent bond. Basically, what is chemical bond? A chemical bond is a force that hold the atoms together. The bonds help to atom form the molecules and the compounds. There are different types of the chemical bonds. The one important type is the covalent bond. So the covalent bond is a type of the chemical bond that is formed when two atoms share one or more pair of electrons. This sharing allows both atoms to hold the electrons together rather than one atom completely taking or losing the electrons. Covalent bonds usually occur between the non-metal atoms such as the hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and carbon. These atoms have similar electronegativity, which means they attract electrons with nearly the same strength. Because of this, they prefer to share the electrons instead of transferring them. By sharing the electrons, each atom completes its outermost shell, also known as the valence shell. Completing the outer shell make the atoms more stable, so similar to the noble gases which naturally have full outer shells. This stability is the main reason covalent bonds are formed. So why do atoms form the covalent bonds? Basically, atoms form the covalent bonds in order to become the stable. Most atoms are unstable when their outermost electron shells is incomplete. Stability is achieved when an atom has a full valence shell, which give it a lower energy and make it less attractive. For many atoms, especially non-metals, gaining or losing the electron is difficult because it requires a large amount of the energy instead of completely transferring the electron. So these atoms finds it easier to share the electron with the another atoms. By sharing the electrons through a covalent bonds, both atoms have benefit. Each atom can count the shared electron as a part of its own outer shell, allowing them to complete their valence shell and achieve the stability without losing or gaining the electron permanently. So there is the valence electron. The valence electrons, the electrons present in the outermost shell of an atom. These electrons are the most important because they are the ones involved in chemical reaction and bond formation. So the inner electron remain close to the nucleus and usually do not take part in the bonding. The valence electron play a key role in forming the chemical bonds because they determine how an atoms will react with other atoms. The number of valence electrons decide whether an atom will share loss or gain electrons during the bonding. So the atoms with incomplete valence shells are unstable. To become a stable, such atoms form the bond with other atoms by sharing electron in covalent bonding. This helps them to complete their outer shell and achieve the stability. Now we define what is octet rule. Atoms tend to become stable by having the 8 electron in their outermost shell, which is known as the octet rule. This arrangement gives atom a stable electronic configuration similar to the noble gases, which are naturally unreactive due to their full outer shells. However, the hydrogen is an exception to the octet rule because it can only hold the 2 electrons in its outer shell. Covalent bondings allow atoms to share electrons so they can complete their valence shell and follow the octet rule without gaining or losing electron completely. So now the question is how the covalent bond is formed. There is the unexpected findings like a covalent bond is formed when two atoms come close to each other. As they approach, their outermost electron begins to interact with one another. There is the unexpected findings like instead of transferring the electrons, the atoms share one or more electron between them. This sharing reduces the energy of the system and make the atom more stable. So this picture shows that the share electron belong to both atoms, meaning each atom can could be share electron as a parts of its own valence shell. So this sharing allow both atoms to achieve a stable electronic configuration. There is the types of the covalent bond. The covalent bonds are classified into different types based on the number of electrons shared between the atoms. These types include the single, double, and triple covalent bonds. So each type differ in bond strength and number of share electrons. Single covalent bond. A single covalent bond is formed when one pair of electron is shared between two atoms. This is the weakest type of the covalent bond. It is represented by a single line in chemical structure. So the common example include the hydrogen and chlorine molecules. Double covalent bond. So this picture also elaborates the double covalent bond is formed when the two pair of electrons are shared between two atoms. This bond is stronger than a single covalent bond. It is shown by a double line in the molecular structures. For example, it includes the oxygen and carbon dioxide. Triple covalent bond. So this picture also elaborate a triple covalent bond occur when three pairs of electrons are shared between the two atoms. This type of bond is very strong and it is represented by a triple line. A common example is the nitrogen molecules. Now the polar covalent bond. It is a polar covalent bonds. The electrons are shared unequally between the atom. This happens when one atom has a stronger attraction for electron. As a result, one atom becomes slightly negative and the other slightly positive. This example includes the water is a common example of the polar covalent bond. Non-polar covalent bond. So a non-polar covalent bond is formed when electrons are shared equally between the atoms. This occurs when both atoms have the similar electronegativity. Because electrons are shared equally, so the no partial changes are formed. The example is the oxygen molecule. Now we define what is electronegativity. Electronegativity is the ability of an atom to attract the electrons toward itself in a chemical bonds. Different atoms have a different electronegativity values. So the difference in electronegativity determine the type of bonds formed. A small difference result in a covalent bond while a large difference lead to the ionic bond. Now we describe the properties of the covalent bond. The covalent bonds usually have a low melting and boiling points because the force between their molecules are very weak. They are poor conductors of electricity and are commonly found as gases or liquid, although some may be soft solids. The example of covalent bonds, mainly common substances are covalent bonds such as the water, which is essential for life. Other examples include the carbon dioxide and the methane, which are important in respiration and the fuel, respectively. So, covalent bonds are essential for life because they form the basis of many biological molecules. They are present in DNA, proteins, and the carbohydrates, helping to form the complex structure necessary for living organisms. So, as the concluding marks, covalent bonds are formed when atoms share electron to achieve a stable electronic configuration. This sharing helps atoms to complete their valence shell, making them less reactive and more stable. So overall, the covalent bonds play a vital role in chemistry as it's help form many compounds essential for everyday life and the biological process.